Welcome to Chapter 1, Reasoning and Geometry. Our first lesson will focus on patterns and inductive reasoning. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to answer how do we identify and apply patterns. Before we get into the new vocabulary of counterexample, let's review what a conjecture is. From the first video lesson, a conjecture is a conclusion that you reach based on inductive reasoning. It is an educated guess. So your new vocabulary term, counterexample, is a false example that disproves a conjecture. So you will start with the educated guess, some sort of statement, and you will come up with an example that disproves it. So let's try to do a couple of these examples together. Write a counterexample for the conjecture, all apples are red. A possible counterexample would be Granny Smith apples. Those are the green apples. Maybe Yellow Delicious, any of those other apples that are simply not red. Moving on to the next example, write a counterexample for the conjecture that adding numbers makes the answer get big. This one may have been a little bit trickier, but if you're adding two negative numbers, any two negative numbers, they just get a larger negative number, which actually means it has a smaller value. So any example of adding two negative numbers together would be a counterexample to that conjecture. Go ahead and take a minute and do these problems on your own. So you're writing a counterexample for each conjecture. If a shape has four sides, then it is a rectangle. Multiplying a number by -1 produces a number less than -1. And when the turn signal is on, then the car is turning. Take a minute and go ahead and complete those in your notes. One thing to keep in mind as we go over these answers is that just like with the Granny Smith and the Yellow Delicious apples, there can be more than one counterexample for a conjecture. So these might just be my answers. Yours may be different, but still correct. So a shape that has four sides that isn't a rectangle, my example is a trapezoid. For the second problem, multiplying a number by -1 produces a number less than -1. Your example can be any set of multiplication as long as it's a negative number being multiplied by -1, because that will always produce a positive number, which is always greater than -1. Finally, number 3, when the turn signal is on, then the car is turning. My example is that you could have the turn signal on to designate that you are switching lanes on a highway and not actually the car turning. So, hope you guys did well and got your own counterexamples for these conjectures. In conclusion, let's go ahead and revisit our lesson essential question. So this is Chapter 1, Reasoning and Geometry with patterns and inductive reasoning. So how do we identify and apply patterns? We use inductive reasoning to recognize a pattern and use a rule to extend it. So please make sure you guys complete your notes. Back at the front on the top, you have the lesson essential question written down and its answer. Thanks for watching.